G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back to another video, and here we go with the third and final video from the Tsukuba Group 3 combination in Manufacturer Series a couple of weeks ago. The first two slots, if you watch the previous two videos I've released, so yesterday and the day before, you will know that those two races didn't exactly go quite to plan, and I suspect that was partly, if not mostly, down to the fact that I was trying the 2-stop in a field where a lot of people were going for the 3-stop, and the 2-stop in the race also meant that you spend a lot of time on your harder tyres as they get more and more worn out. But we're going to be trying the 3-stop now. We're 3 slots deep in this combination, so I was getting a little bit frustrated with it. I just wanted to have a nice result, but of course a nice result with a alternate strategy does start with a good qualifying, and you can see we went out with the pack initially. We jumped back to the pits and came out all the way behind the pack in an attempt to get some clear air. So let's head through this qualifying lap, braking just on the start of the shadow, coming into turn 1, using first gear to get the car rotated and squirt the power on the exit. Turn 2 and 3, easy flat, braking just on the apex of turn 3, and then make sure you get all the way to the inside of this banking at turn 4. We don't quite do that, but using first gear once again, looking on the left hand side, just before the orange barrier ends, dab of the brakes and turn in. A little bit wide through there, so it's not been the best lap so far. You can get this corner flat out and then into turn 8, braking just on the apex of turn 7, a very subtle left hand kink. Just before the turn 8 hairpin, once again first gear and squirt the power out on the exit very gently, and then coming up towards the final corner, turn 9, the long right hand sweep, looking on the right hand side, braking just on the pit board, just the sign that sticks up out of the ground saying pit, just brake and turn in on that, using third gear for rotation, and then accelerate across the line with a 52.3. I was going to continue this run, and actually, do I continue this run? I don't. I bail off to the inside because there was a load of cars there, so I bailed off to the inside there because I didn't want to catch any traffic. But that's a 52.3. It's actually the fastest qualifying time I've done on this combination, and I knew I could go quicker quite easily too, because I made several mistakes on that lap there. So we're going to be looking to just iron out those mistakes. So namely, the two big glaring errors for me was running too wide through turn 4 and running too wide through turn 5. So turn 4, you want to basically just follow the inside of the corner, just like that. So that's a lot better through turn 4, and then turn 5 we also went a little bit wide, not quite getting the turn in right. We've not quite done it exactly correct there, but we'll see if we've made a gain. We haven't actually. We're a tenth and a bit down on our previous best, the 52.3, and we'll head through the end of this lap and see how we go, because as we know, the qualifying here at Tsukuba very, very tight, and you would have seen that from the last two videos. It's a matter of, I would think I was 6/10 off the pole position time both times, and I was at 14th and 15th in the field. So a matter of improving by 1/10, you gain a good handful of positions. But let's go through again. That was no improvement of 52.4. We're going to go for the second run because we don't have enough time to cancel back to the pits. That first sector split more or less the same, and heading through turn 4, that's actually not too bad, following the inside profile of the corner. And then turn 5, that's a lot better. On the power nice and early. Can we get turn 6 flat out? 6 and 7 all flat out. Lovely. We're still marginally down at this point, but if we can have a nice closing, if we can have a nice ending to the lap, that will probably be a slight improvement for us. And actually, a curious little point to point out here, down on the bottom right of your screen where I've got the delta, actually that sector 2 I put in on this qualifying lap is faster than my car record, so that includes the time trial time. So I've got a lot of time in me, but unfortunately I don't quite get the best final sector, and I come home with a slightly slower lap indeed. And that unfortunately means we settle with the 52.3, but if we had a 52.5 like we did in the previous two videos, we would have at least been 16th. So we start in 10th, which is a good handful of positions, better than before, and with the 3-stop strategy, let's hope to see an improvement, but not before the Manufacturer Series introduction. Lovely as always, we meet ourselves on the grid. Once again, handling cars on the front row, Ferrari and a Porsche, both MR cars. So again, we're seeing the trend of the MR cars being the strongest here with a load of the FR cars at the back of the field. Although I'm starting in 10th, smack bang in the middle of the pack, so it gives us an okay chance of trying to make this 3-stop work. So what I've decided to do is actually start on the medium tyres, because we're going for a 3-stop strategy now, which means we don't have to spend as long on the hard tyre, we don't have to spend as long on one set of medium tyres, and I mean we still only do one set of mediums and hards, but the stints on those tyres are much shorter, because 24 out of the 37 laps are just for soft tyres. So the 3-stop strategy compared to the 2-stop strategy, you spend a lot more time on newer, softer tyres. So 2 12-lap stints on soft, 1 12-lap stint on medium. That brings us up to 36 laps in total, which leaves the remaining 1 lap, so lap 37 or lap 1 or whatever singular lap you'd like to do on your hard tyre, the slowest, the hardest, the least sort of competitive tyre compound. And that's what we're going to do, 1 lap on hard, and we're going to be quite strategic with which lap we choose to do that slow hard tyre lap on. But as for the start of the race, I felt as though starting on the medium tyre gave me the best, put me in sort of the best strategic position to try and get my strategy correct, because if I start on the hard tyre, I feel as though that sort of leans me into one strategy direction. Getting the hard tyre out of the way at the start, it opens me up to being quite vulnerable at the start of the race, so it makes me quite susceptible to losing positions, a load of positions from behind, especially when a lot of the cars are bunched up together. It often means I can lose 1, 2, 3 positions if I make one mistake, because the cars are so close, as opposed to the later stages in the race where if I make a mistake I may not even lose a position at all. So it's just about that. So I feel like the hard tyre at the start would put me in that kind of position. A soft tyre at the start probably just means I'm going to be held up with traffic up ahead, so I felt as though the medium tyre was the best compromise, because if I did get held up, I'm at least not wasting my softest tyre, and if I do fall back, I still have my softer tyres later to try and help with that. And also being on the medium tyre, it should just limit any loss of positions straight off the bat like that. But we're getting deeper into the race now, and you can see I've lost the slipstream of the cars up ahead. So again, it gets quite complex with the strategies that everyone's on. It makes it difficult to kind of really gauge where exactly I am in terms of the progress of the race. So I don't know if I'm just losing time to these cars because they're on slower tyre, because I'm on a slower tyre, or if I'm just slower in general. But at the moment, the pace in the race is actually okay at this point, having set a 53.8 on the opening lap, as opposed to, I mean, if you have a look at the current fastest lap of 52.8, obviously that's got to be a handling car on a soft tyre. But I think the fact that we are in the 53s to begin with it's not the absolute worst pace out there possible, and we'll see when we come across the line here, it's actually a 53.4. So that's actually a decent pace, and we managed to actually stick into the 53s for ages. So we skip ahead, so some people have gone into the pits, and we're now up in 7th. I've still got Shin very close behind, so he qualified behind me and started the race behind me, and he's been stuck behind me all through the opening of the race. So whether or not he's actually quicker than me, it doesn't actually matter, because he's stuck behind me. He can only run as fast as I can, but at the moment I feel as though, given the circumstance, the tyre wear with the Supra at this track, I feel as though sticking in the 53s is actually an okay showing in terms of pace. And by the fact that we've got loads of people going in the pits around me, it opens up a possibility of me potentially getting an overcut, but it kind of depends on what tyres exactly everyone else is on. If people are going to pit early and go for softer tyres and they get clear air, they're probably going to undercut me. But at least we're staying out. We're going to do the full 12 laps on the medium tyres. Some people are pitting in on the end of lap 11. A load of people pitting in on the end of lap 11 off the medium tyre. So that's maybe a lap early or so, unless they're going to extend their soft tyre stints. Actually, that will be interesting to see. But at least we're up in 5th position at this point. The gaps are opening up behind. So hopefully that limits the amount of positions we could lose at our pit stops. But Shin is still very close behind, and we're still going to be trying our best to try and catch up to these two. But we have an incident here. Shin just turns us around. Just completely turns us around.
Are you okay?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I was seeing red. I was absolutely furious with that. I blew my stack at Shin. For that, the race was going fine. There was nothing that had gone wrong in that race so far. I was so consistent 53s, and I just get turned around by another driver, and oh my goodness, I was so angry, and it was just steam was blowing out my ears. My head blew into the ceiling. I was just furious because there's absolutely no excuse for that, really. Maybe I overreacted, and maybe I am overreacting, but oh man, it was just absolutely crushing just to be completely turned around. We'll have a look at the replay later, but it honestly just felt as though I tried to take the corner. I think I went slightly deep and was trying to take a later apex to try and compensate, but Shin just slammed it up the inside on the exit of the corner as I was closing the gap to the apex, and it just turned me around. Oh man, it's infuriating because this particular combination was actually quite frustrating, to be honest. I didn't go in expecting a full, I'll call it a flagship result. I didn't expect to go in getting a full complement of 250 points, which is normally where about I can get on a very good night. I didn't expect to go in, I fully expected to go in with this being a dropped round, but I at least wanted to have just a decent race, whether it was worth 200 points even. Like, that's a low result for me nowadays. 200 points, even if it was just worth that, and it didn't even count towards my championship, but I got a good race out of it, I would have been happy with that, but obviously not, and I can't justify staying up late for a drop round. So this was my third and final attempt, but let's see if we can recover something, because we're doing the 3-stop, remember, so we've got the medium tyres out of the way. One of the soft tyre stints is happening now, and we've caught up to this Subaru, who, I don't know what tyre they might be on. They might be on the medium or their hard tyre. I suppose if they come into the pits at the end of this lap behind me, they're probably on the hard tyre. In fact, we don't even get to see. It's obviously not important. I didn't bother to leave it in. A few laps later, we've caught up to this Mazda RX Vision, who's going to go into the pits now at the end of lap 20. Corey Hack is also behind me again, so we've been on track with Corey quite a bit. We actually don't get the best of runs through the final turn, however Corey gets it worse, and it doesn't quite put me in a position to fall victim to a move at turn 1. However, we are going to begin to think about some of the pit stop strategy here, because what I want to do is make sure we don't pit out into traffic. So that is kind of what I was getting at with being quite strategic with the particular lap that I pit in on my hard tyre. But at the moment, we're just looking at Corey behind, because obviously, again, I don't know what tyre strategy he may be on, so it could very well be the case of he's on a lot softer tyre compound at this stage, and I'm actually holding him up on my worn softs, so obviously he may be on newer softs or even brand new mediums, because that's probably still just about the same kind of pace. However, it's probably a little bit quicker to be on my level of tyre wear on the softs, because I'm setting a 53.3 on lap 20, and we'll see what this lap is as we head across the line at 53.2. So we are actually running slightly quicker than we were on our worn mediums, so that obviously tells me that Corey's probably also on the softs, because he's keeping pace with me, and he's also probably slightly quicker than me at this particular stage, so he's probably on newer softs. So there we go, a bit of detective work there for you, trying to work out what kind of tyre he might be on. That's quite interesting. It's quite interesting at this stage, because Corey's struggling to find a way past, and this is going to be a quite difficult situation that puts him in, because he's going to be, trying to question what sort of lap he should go in to try and sort of jump me. And I'm also aware of that. I've got to make sure that I don't get jumped by him, and we'll see coming up across past the pit entry on the end of lap 22 what Corey decides to do. Looking on the left hand side on the totem, Corey does pit. He was on soft tyres, so would you look at that, my detective work is absolutely exemplary. I can't wait to be hired by the federal police to try and solve some mysteries, because I solved that one with very little effort. But anyway, we're going to fast forward through the end of lap 23. We go past the pits again. Perhaps I should have pitted in, because that would have probably covered off a bit of an undercut from Corey, and we'll see how that works out, because we are coming up to lap 24. Surely we've got to be pitting in soon to get off of these soft tyres. In fact, we probably will, because we're going to have 12 laps, and that'll bring us up to 36 with the 1 lap on the hard. But we've come out behind the Viper now, so we are going to be looking at the pit stop strategy to try and work out whether we're actually going to go onto the soft tyres or onto the hard tyre for this pit stop coming up on this in-lap. So if we have a look on the mini-map up ahead, we've got a group of cars coming into turn 5 right now. So my thought was that if I went onto the softs, I'd probably come out right around where those cars are. They're coming up towards turn 8. So I thought it probably would be best to go on my hard tyres. That way I don't use up my soft tyres getting potentially stuck in that group. So I do go into the pits and I do go onto the hard tyre, and we'll see exactly where we do come out and see if this actually was a good decision, to go onto these hard tyres. Obviously, it would have been a poor decision to come out onto the softs and get stuck in this pack. However, with the single lap of hard tyres, we may get stuck in the pack, but then in 50 seconds time we're going into the pits again for another pit stop. So, well, it's actually not come too bad because that gap the pack has kind of opened up. However, there are 2 cars directly ahead of me, including Corey, so he did get that undercut, but I'm going to try and undercut him again by going for the soft tyres at the end, and we'll see how that works out. But we kind of did get put out just behind cars, so I feel as though we might have been held up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is pit in off the single lap in the hards and go out on the softs, and that's some lovely clear air for us. So we come out in 15th at this stage. So basically what I'm looking for now is just to try and catch up to this group up ahead, make some inroads, try and gain some positions by getting some overtakes done, and also taking advantage of people that are up ahead, sort of within a 20-second barrier ahead of me, who are still yet to pit for some description of a pit stop. But we'll see how we go. We've come out of the pits in lovely clear air, so we've just got a nice clean run to the end with minimal fuel load, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of lap times we can actually get, because we've been quite consistent in the 53s. However, we don't quite see exactly how long the lap time was on the hard tyre, because it counted as an outlap plus in-lap. But anyway, we're going to come across the line here. That outlap was 52.0, however that's going to be slightly askew given the fact that the pit stop makes that particular lap a little bit inaccurate. But ultimately we got up into 13th from someone pitting, I assume, and that was it for that race. But it was just so frustrating. I got turned around at the start from an okay position and it put me right off. And I mean, something I didn't talk about was the fact that I lost about 10 seconds from that, because my in-laps for my other pit stops were about 102s. The in-lap where I got spun around was a 112. So if I was 10 seconds further up, I probably would have been about 8th or 9th. But my temper was running high and I was quite angry. I kind of did let it rip in the chat, and I think it's important to be transparent and just put in exactly what I did say. I mean, I didn't call him any names. I was conscious of not to call him a name, but I did voice my opinion very, let's say, overtly in the chat. I basically just called him out. Like, that was atrocious. I don't really know what exactly he was trying to achieve with that move, because if you think about what he was trying to do, he was trying to get up the inside of the exit of turn 4. It would have given him the outside for turn 5. It's going to be very difficult to get an outside move at turn 5 done, and in fact, at the end of the day, we're probably both going to lose a load of time from that. So I'm struggling to understand how he was going to try and make an intelligent move out of that. But again, I just basically summed up all of this race in one word, and this is where the title comes from: absolute ridiculousness. Maybe I was too harsh. I mean, let me know. Maybe I was, but again, I really put conscious thought into not call him a name, because that's just juvenile, but I did want to voice my very, very flamboyant frustration with what happened. But I think naturally we're going to have to look at the replay, which I've got right here for you, and we're going to have a look at the incident right here, and he just puts his nose in there on the exit and just swivels the back of my car around, and we're going to have another look, because I think, to be fair to Shin, I did run quite wide, and it did kind of open me up, sort of did open a gap up, in fact, on the inside of turn 4, so I'm thinking maybe it's not so much of clear-cut Shin's fault, it's probably a 70-30 split, because if you look here, I do run deep, and he's seen that gap, and he's trying to go for it, but you know, I've gone deep and I've come back for the later apex. But again, I think it's more of a case of I'm not quite sure in the bigger picture what he was trying to achieve, because with the later apex, I was going to get a better run out of the corner, and he was going to have the outside. And I mean, if you have a look at the level of overlap, his front wheels aren't even in line with my rear wheels, and we're making contact there. It's like he's got his nose in line with my rear axle, and it's just enough to send the unstable rear-ended Supra spinning. So it's quite frustrating, because I feel like at the level that this lobby is, because I've raced Shin quite a bit, and he's actually a decent racer, I feel kind of bad that we've had this kind of coming together, but you can see just an absolute load of opposite lock as soon as I realise I'm getting pit manoeuvred there. But I feel quite bad for this incident, because I'm just sitting here, I'm thinking that if I was in Shin's position, I'm quite confident that I would have identified that the car ahead of me was going to come back for their apex and cause an incident like that if I tried to go up the inside. I'm definitely confident, I'm about 95% sure I probably would have been able to pick that and not go for that move and cause that incident, but I think the frustration just comes from the fact that Shin didn't. He saw the gap opened up and he just went for it without kind of thinking about the consequences or the bigger picture, because at the end of the day, it's absolutely just ruined my race. I mean, again, not that I was going for a full result in this particular race, but still, I'm entitled to jump into a combination and just have a nice race, whether it means anything for my championship or not. But anyway, that's 3 Tsukuba videos done, and ultimately a very frustrating round at that. 3 quite frustrating videos. The third one was almost good, but it wasn't quite the one. Wasn't quite the round for the Supra, unfortunately. The track is not suited for the Supra, so that's why I didn't really consider it to be the destination of a good result, but nevertheless, still quite frustrating overall. But we'll be looking to improve through the end of the season. I'm pretty sure the next round is Maggiore in Group 3, where the Supra is probably going to be the meta car, in fact, so we will be keeping an eye out for a good, decent result at that. Final round, I think, is Group 4 at Fuji. That's a hard skip in the Toyota 86. So Maggiore will be the last possible chance we can get a good result for manufacturers, so let's see if we can finish the season off with a bang, so do keep an eye out for that. But that's going to finish up this video today, so do hit the like button if you enjoyed, and do subscribe if you'd like to see more videos from me. Do leave a comment as well. Questions, comments, and constructive criticism, as always, very much appreciated. But that's going to be the end of this one today, and that means that is it from me. So once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.